Rewind the dynamite from the post-wrestling site. AEW, lighting up the fuse. Sit back and enjoy the bubbly as we hear from Jon and Wai Ting. Where we're going, we don't need roads. And if the buck stops here, this thing might blow. Everything you hear are opinions of the show. And if you don't like it, go to the forums and let them know.
We are live with Rewind-A-Dynamite. John Pollock and Wai Ting here with you in the midst of WrestleMania week, as we are going to be discussing AEW Dynamite, which for this Wednesday was, for most, maybe the other show on Wednesday night.
Yeah. I mean, this was certainly a week where I think if I had the option, I probably would have watched the other show. But, you know, I don't think you could have gone wrong with either one today.
No. I think you had a lot on this show, and I would say, well, we're getting ahead of ourselves, but I think they have really loaded the deck for next week's episode as well. They built up quite a lot tonight that we will get into. But how are you doing tonight, Wai?
I'm doing all right. Yeah, not so bad. How about you?
I'm doing okay. I woke up today. Last night was a very, very difficult evening. It was very minimal sleep. But then today, I woke up and I was starting to feel. Remember last week I was saying in the interview with Alex Patel, I haven't gotten sick all year long, and then today I was starting to feel like a sickness coming on. I was like, I really jinxed myself. I feel I've combated it. I'm feeling okay now, but this would be the week for me to get sick.
Yeah. Hopefully you're past it. And any sort of illness, of course, is, you know, not good at any point, but especially now. So let's hope for the best for you.
I'm not too concerned. I think all is well. But that's you're feeling in good spirits and good health.
Yeah, I am. In fact, like they have kind of a, you know, like every day the situation with COVID seems to be changing. New rules seem to be implemented all the time in Ontario right now, and I learned this week that I actually might live in a high risk area, and therefore they might be opening up like vaccinations pretty soon for people, even my age. So, maybe
congrats for being in a high risk area.
Exactly. Yeah, maybe a bit of a silver lining there. I mean, we've just been waiting forever for these types of things. So, I guess I'll update people maybe next week.
All right. Well, best of luck with that. So we are in the middle of WrestleMania week. We have a lot of shows that have gone up over the last little while, including a very special roundtable show, Wai, that we did on Tuesday, our WrestleMania 37 preview with Dan Lavransky and Jason Agnew.
Yeah, a lot of feedback to that one. And thank you everybody who checked it out and listened to it and sent us some good words. We encourage everybody to check out their coverage this weekend. You know, plenty of options for everybody to choose from, as always, our good friends at Sunday Night's Main Event.
Yes, so that's up on the site right now. You can check out the podcast version, the video version. I was glad that we got to do this show. It was one that was a long time to get to, so I'm glad that we were finally able, the four of us, to all sit down and do a show. I did enjoy doing it, even though it'd been quite a long time since the four of us had all chatted.
Likewise.
Together.
Yeah, likewise.
We also have, up today, I put up a bonus show that's for cafe members. The idea being that, you know, these shows are going to be pretty packed for the rest of the week. So we broke up a bit of the news. So if you want to go check out that on the cafe, it's a short update going through the Raw ratings and several other news stories. But I did leave a few things that I want to talk with you about, Wai. And I actually don't even know if you got to see any of the Hall of Fame on Tuesday night. Did you get to watch the 2020 class, the 2021 class, or did you get to see a portion of both, which totaled 3 hours of speeches?
I watched both of them. And I guess we can have a bit of a discussion about it. You know, this is the first time they've kind of done such a truncated, tight format that, you know, was obviously not in front of a crowd. And I didn't
Wait a minute. Those jokes were not generating real laughter?
I don't think so, John. At least not from home, and from what I could gather, probably not in attendance too, because much like the wrestling, they use the canned audio with a guy with the finger on the trigger, cueing the laughter, cueing the chants, and it just felt incredibly disingenuous and awkward. The whole production really felt that way because people felt like they had to rehearse their speeches so much and cut them down so much that they ultimately didn't feel very sincere. Well, I mean, some of them did feel sincere, but most of them I just felt like were, the soul of a lot of the speeches that we typically see on these types of events. I felt it was just really kind of sucked out. And man, you add like fake audience noise on top of it. I didn't enjoy the show.
I thought it was tough for the 3 hours because when I was done the first one, I was like, I think this is good. Like at 90 minutes, like it was enough. I had the same complaints as you. I can get into wrestling matches in the Thunderdome. To me, it's like the audience in the Thunderdome is not going to prevent me from enjoying a wrestling match. It's not perfect, but it's not impossible. The speeches to me were tougher, especially when they tried to work in comedy. That just did not work. Like the canned laughter to me was just going too far. And I guess they're trying to replicate and add some humor to these speeches. Like I get it, but with 3 hours of these, to be honest, like I used to really enjoy going to the Hall of Fame because typically you'd get some really great speeches, but I kind of hit my limit with them. It was the year we were in Orlando and you and I were, I'm pretty sure I was with you unless you bailed on it, but it was just like, there is so much incredible wrestling that is going on right now for an event that I can now watch on the network. This was like pre-network. Like that was how you got to see this. It was either this or the edited version on USA, or it would come out on DVD at some point. So there was an attraction to it. Now there are so many options during WrestleMania week, and to me, they've kind of taken away like the great speeches on top of it. Eric Bischoff, I think, would have been a phenomenal speech. He even made light of the fact that he had 3 minutes to get a 3-minute warning tribute in, which was kind of nice. But like he didn't even attempt to scratch the surface of his career because how do you even start that in 3 minutes? And it was, why even have an Eric Bischoff this year when, you want to have people with name recognition that are also very good speakers. And sometimes you don't get both. Sometimes big name, not a great speech deliverer. Eric Bischoff, I think, is someone that people are interested in and is a great natural performer. So I was disappointed in that one. I thought Molly Holly came across as like the most wonderful human being on earth. The fact that she had her limited time of 3 minutes and used pretty much like the entire time to name off production crew members. I think that just spoke volumes about this person and her character, that even in the 3 minutes she spent it, thanking people that you wouldn't know their names readily. And then
her speech, she did a full version of it that they uploaded on the network afterwards.
Yeah.
It might be
that was nice.
For free. Yeah.
Yeah. That's on their YouTube.
And in fact, like that was the best speech I heard all night because it felt like what I think the person had originally intended. And I do hope like all the recipients do take the time to deliver, maybe even on their own, shooting it in their own living room, their full speech, just so that we know, like truly what they wanted to say on this night. Really unfortunate we didn't get that on the broadcast.
Yeah, it's, it was, to me, it was way too long doing the two of them. I just think that that part was difficult, and
I don't really understand the need to do the two classes other than maybe just them wanting to somehow categorize, 1 year on the network and another year. Like it makes no sense to me. I would have rather actually you spread the speeches out to 2 hours or to 3 hours just to give everybody their due time. But, no matter what, without an audience, something like this really wouldn't work. It affects, all the award shows. Anytime like somebody has to, receive an award in the living room, it's really not the same. But I thought they went even a little too overboard with the overproduction on this one.
What about accepting the award in your backyard like Ozzy Osbourne did?
You could definitely tell who cared about this and who didn't really. Like some people dressed up for it. To some people, it was the achievement of a lifetime. To other people, it was like, oh, this came in my mail. Thanks, guys. Like, some people didn't need more than the 2 minutes. And it's just like, it just tells you how much of a bullshit thing the celebrity the wing is most of the time. You know, it's just like, it's a way to kind of like, it's their flirtation with celebrity and acknowledgement for people who might have spent like a day with this company, somehow getting the same amount of, spotlight as people who've spent their entire career. Anyway, that really was something they could have done away with. Like, did we really need William Shatner and Ozzy Osbourne this year? What did they gain from that?
I think it's just like they want to have their celebrity induction every year. And if this year was as simple as, hey, can you just shoot a video for us? 60 seconds tops.
I'll tell you what's strange is, like we have to have that, but they also spend time on this legacy wing of like names that many of which I've never heard of, but like they do make time every year to acknowledge a big list of people who, by all accounts, actually probably deserve to be in something like this. It's like the only little kind of point of legitimacy that they decide to actually focus time on. And that I don't really understand. Like who is, I'm glad they have it, but like, man, who's picking those names?
I think this is and the names that they put in this year were Ray Stevens, Brickhouse Brown, Dr. Death Steve Williams, Baron Michelle Leone, Gary Hart, Buzz Sawyer, Dick the Bruiser, Pistol Pez Watley, Ethel Johnson, and Paul Bosch. I actually recommend a few years ago, our friend Corey Erdman wrote this great story for Vice on Ethel Johnson, if you want to learn a bit more about her. But I mean, I look at the legacy wing is where they want to try and round this out to have other historical figures that they're not going to take the time to actually do inductions for. But I remember a few years ago when they put up the announcements for the legacy wing, and one of them was Bruiser Brody, and someone like reached out to Barbara Goodish about, the fact that Brody was going in. News to her. It's like, I don't know how much is like really put into this. Like what, again, Paul Levesque actually did an interview about this week, and he's asked about the criteria of the Hall of Fame. And it's like, he says, listen, a lot of people throw in ideas. It comes down to Vince. It's looked at like this is an entertainment show that is kind of like, that's going to inform a lot of these people that are good speakers that they want to have in. It's like, I think everyone understands what this Hall of Fame is. It's a show, and that's why I think I'm going to be more critical of the presentation, because that's what this thing sits upon. And there are fans that look at this very seriously. I will say this, especially with the current generation that have now grown up as this being a part of WrestleMania weekend every year, the performers generally take this one. It is pretty serious. Not even like it's not a sports Hall of Fame. It's not votes, but it is the acknowledgement of the person in Vince McMahon that they are all seeking that kind of, acknowledgement from. Like Vince McMahon is putting a check mark next to your name. And even Rob Van Dam did an interview today or recently and said that the comment he got when he was at the Hall of Fame last week from Vince McMahon that your style helped change the industry, like that meant an enormous amount to Rob Van Dam. Like this is a guy in Vince McMahon that a lot of these performers, like that is the approval they seek. It's one man at the end of the day.
Whether or not you consider this to be a real Hall of Fame, I always have time to listen to these speeches because,
definitely,
no matter what you think about the person's career, this is their last day on the job. This is the big, speech they give at the end of their career. And
not Hogan, dude. Hogan's going for another run. He's going to defend that, dude. He was a joke in that. It was with the belt and everything. I thought he was terrible, to be honest, with his speech. It was like the worst, like, scripted Hogan that is the typical Hogan we now get on WWE programming.
Yeah. But, like, anybody, like, spending their last day on the job that was a very significant part of their life, I want to listen to. Like Glenn Jacobs, I thought he delivered a very good speech.
Very nice speech.
I wanted to hear more of it. Unfortunately, for the vast majority, it's like that level of authenticity that you usually get, from anybody that, on their last day of the job, so to speak. We were robbed of that for much of this. So yeah, I'll tell you what I really didn't need as well. All the red carpet shit that they were like faking You know, it was like they didn't have an audience. So like, what were the? First of all, like, do you think they like dressed up for anything but that red carpet? Like they probably just put their suit on, shot that thing on the red carpet, and then went to the back and took it off, right? And secondly, it was just like they were the most bullshit interviews. Like they were being asked, you know, say something about the NWO, and I loved the most was
MVP?
like Kofi Kingston, like being asked about the NWO and him being like, "Oh yeah, black and white, yeah, sure, man, but what about the Bellas?" You know, like they're like quickly wanting to.
Did you notice how quickly MVP changed the subject when he was asked about the NWO and he shifted focus to JBL?
It was super awkward. Absolutely, yeah. Nobody wants to celebrate. Like what were they thinking? Asking about the NWO. But like all those segments really felt like they were almost like pop quizzes to the current roster about how much they knew about anybody that was actually going in there. And some of them had very good things to say. Drew, I thought, had some very nice things to say about the Bulldog, but a lot of them were just like, you could tell the talent were kind of uncomfortable being in some of those situations. I don't understand cutting time from speeches to make room for that.
Yeah, and certainly. I think it was. I mean, this was certainly a year where you were really patching together this production that was at the end of it 3 hours, but you're still looking at so many people that I think ideally, like if you're looking, number one, I think you need to do this in front of people. Like that is a necessary for the Hall of Fame. I think also like the sweet spot is maybe 5 or 6 people going in, and like not everyone is going to be a great orator that is going to be able to deliver a dynamic speech, but I think you need at least 2 of them every year that are going to be great speeches. Dave Bautista will go in, and I'm sure he'll be fine, but he's not the guy I'm looking at either to give like a dynamic speech that like a Ric Flair or Dwayne Johnson is going to deliver. And there's not going to be too many of those, but I do think like that should be considered significantly, is that lesser people going in, but allowing them to have time and certainly relaxing things to a degree. These are all professional performers that can go out, and I do not have any doubt in my mind that Kevin Nash could have spoken for 20 minutes and not needed bullet points to get himself through things. And I understand there's an extreme level of caution that is taken in a lot of these, but I do believe that you can put these performers out, and if nothing else, these performers can tell stories, and they can be. This could be something that is not a priority WrestleMania week, but something you would at least go out of your way at some point to check out. And they've got a lot of big names in the coming years that they can lean on, like an Undertaker for Dallas next year would make sense. You've always got The Rock. John Cena is now at that stage as well. At some point, like Paul Heyman inducting Brock Lesnar, and Brock Lesnar, who again would not be a great speech, but him actually like letting the guard down and actually, talking for 10 minutes about his career would be engaging stuff. So you do have some of those headliners over the next years. Triple H has not gone in on his own. So certainly he is one you can always go to if you need someone for a certain year.
Yeah.
My 2 other quick notes. Number one, quite the callback to 2003 was Chevelle making a roaring return for Kane's video.
That was a nice video. Yeah.
Then the part that was fascinating, though, was when the Bulldog induction had Harry out there with this Bulldog, Buffy. Mm-hmm. And then Buffy starts moving around, and Harry is trying to play off of this and just says, "Hey, you'd think that Jimmy Hart or Mr. Fuji's here." I was like, has Buffy inherited like the soul of Matilda? These are different dogs. This dog would have no reference.
He did say like what, she was the granddaughter of Matilda. Is that not what he said?
So does the granddaughter of Matilda assume the same rivals that Matilda had?
It was the man's attempt at a joke, and it was met with uproarious laughter. Did you not hear
You're right. It did tear the house down. Actually, I thought Molly's line at the beginning about 2 people having their head shaved at WrestleMania, I think that line would have worked very well with a crowd, mainly because it came from Holly instead of. Nonetheless, the comedy was tough to come by on this.
It was
the laugh
super
track.
awkward, soulless show. But I mean, I do wish like we would be able to get to hear some of these full speeches if people are willing to do them.
Well, most of them have podcasts, so I'm sure they will all promote the speech WWE didn't want you to hear.
Yes.
They can all promote it that way. One person I could definitely hear do a lengthy speech, and he kind of did on Colin Cowherd's podcast today. That is WWE President Nick Khan. I have said it many times. I think this guy was just, you listen to this guy, this is the person you would put every ounce of faith in when it comes to negotiating your media rights deals for the foreseeable future. This was a very interesting podcast. Colin Cowherd was a client of his back when he was still an agent with CAA, so they have a very close relationship. And Nick Khan talked about a lot of interesting subjects in this. He talked about working with Vince McMahon, making it very clear Vince is the one that runs this company, and specifying that they are a media company. They are not a wrestling company. He said that Fastlane, they described it as a big success when it came to driving subscribers to Peacock, but they have been asked by Peacock not to disclose those numbers. So Nick Khan is not going to betray that confidence. He said that, in this pandemic era, he said, just in general, he does not believe Twitter is the best gauge, that it only represents a small percentage of the population, and that's why they're very much looking forward to crowds coming back and listening to people in the arenas, as opposed to Twitter, which I think Twitter can be, it can give you indications, but I certainly wouldn't put all of my weight on Twitter. I think that that's a perfectly sound strategy regarding Twitter, and said once they come back, it's permanent, and there'll be three shows a week with Raw, NXT, and SmackDown. He didn't say anything else about touring, just saying that, Raw, NXT, and SmackDown, once they bring fans back, that's going to be what they're going forward with. When it comes to the creative direction, he is not involved with that. He assigned Vince McMahon, Bruce Pritchard, and Paul Levesque as the people regarding that aspect of the company. And when asked about different geographical areas of the world that they've got their eyes on, mentioned like they have a tremendous following in the Philippines, and that's something that Nick Khan has studied a lot with American entertainment that exports well to the Philippines, and WWE is included, and also specified Mexico. He referred to CMLL and AAA, did not name them, but said that, two smaller groups that work out of there, and basically said for them to go there, it would be starting something on their own in Mexico and building it up, I guess implying like an NXT Mexico, but it certainly seems like Mexico and the Latin America market is very high on their priority list. And, what got a lot of traction today was him stating that Ronda Rousey will return at some point in the future, and that Becky Lynch will be coming back in the not too distant future. And, I have no knowledge of when Becky is going to be coming back, but I could see her back anytime, like even like just right after Mania, you would think.
I mean, it's a hard question to answer. And
he said not too distant future here. So, I mean, that to me sounds like it's, almost imminent.
Well, you would know better than me, John. I know it's like the demands of having a newborn while trying to juggle whatever they're juggling. Granted, it would be a one time a week commitment from her right now.
It's a big difference from the company. Well, I mean, she worked until May last year, but I mean, the majority of her WWE career, it's a lot different now if it's only once a week.
But it's also getting into shape. It's, so many things that we probably don't see beyond that one time a week. But,
when did they have their child? December, I think?
Something like that, yeah.
Well, it's more so interesting the fact that, it was not a maybe. It was Ronda Rousey will return at some point. So that was notable. And at the end, Colin Cowherd was asking about how tired are you going to be, Nick, after all of these nights with WrestleMania week coming up? And Nick Khan, who, I mean, my God, you can tell this man has been working with Vince McMahon. He said, if there's one thing no one gives a shit about, it's how tired people are. No one gives a fuck. People sleep. Right. They don't sleep. He was very adamant about this. No one cares how tired I might be, which I imagine this man is probably exhausted working for this company. But I would definitely recommend this interview. It's about an hour or so in length, and he covered a lot of other non-WWE subjects as well. The recent NFL media rights deals that they completed, where he sees the future of a lot of these larger companies. Like, he believes that an Amazon or an Apple is eventually going to buy one of these networks outright, and sees like Amazon is potentially going down that avenue. But I would just say, if you are a shareholder, if you were a company executive, I don't know how you could not feel completely confident that this guy is the one leading your charge when your next round of TV deals are up, that is negotiating your rights internationally. I mean, this was a fantastic hire by this company, and this interview only, I think, will reinforce that for those that are, and someone that to me would be the guy I would be sending out there to be doing these kinds of interviews. He is incredible in these settings. He is as knowledgeable in the media rights world as probably anyone, and is, save for Vince McMahon, which personally I think Nick Khan is a much better representative of your company to send out there and be doing the media rounds. He's a great ambassador for your company and is not hiding stuff either. Like, he puts out like information here. It's not just, talking in circles and philosophy and stuff like that. You get substance out of an interview like this.
I'll have to check it out.
So before we go to Dynamite, just a quick glance at Thursday. This is when the shows really take over in Tampa. We've got the GCW shows, the IWTV shows starting. So we've got a whole guide up at postwrestling.com. If you go to the tab in the top right corner under Mania Week, we've got all of the shows.
Postwrestling.com/mania.
Perfect. Postwrestling.com/mania. All of the lists of shows, all of the matches that have been announced. We've got Family Reunion tomorrow way, Jimmy Lloyd's D-Generation F, day one of the Acid Cup, and then TakeOver Stand and Deliver Night 2. Have you avoided all TakeOver talk tonight?
I have.
Wow.
I don't.
I won't go in. I know all the results, but I have not watched the show yet.
Okay.
I will say for your benefit, this is not going into the main show itself, but the pre-show had Toni Storm versus Zoe Stark, which had to be booked as a joke for a Marvel fan.
Toni Storm and Zoe Stark, yes. I think it was bound to happen. I'm sure it was quite the civil war.
The pre-show is all I saw. One of the strongest parts, Samoa Joe was sent there to do sit-down interviews with, did one with Walter, with Io Shirai, Raquel Gonzalez. He was great. This to me, very reminiscent of the Jim Ross sit-downs on AEW. Very good questions. I really like Joe in this role. He did several of them. That was a cool part of the pre-show.
The more I'm so happy to hear that he's doing well, but man, the more I feel like the more he does well here, the less chance we might see of him in ring. And man, I want to see that match. I want to see Joe versus Walter instead of Joe interviewing. But if, I guess one's better than none.
I think there's always that time that they will shoot an angle with him. I mean, it's ultimately the WWE giving him the the go ahead to do so. But I think he's transitioned very well, and it's it all comes down to like what is he looking for in his career at this point. Maybe this is the transition he's looking for. It's a very stable position in the company and could do it for years as well. Mm-hmm. So Dynamite, a live show tonight from Daly's Place, and the Inner Circle pull up with several $1 million worth of vehicles.
They are rich, yes.
And they get out, and this looked like the cover of like a 80s like CD cover.
I guess that's the point. I mean, isn't that whole, like, Jericho's entire shtick is just like an 80s glam rock star?
Well, tonight he proclaimed they are back in black.
Yeah.
I mean, going direct here. Mm-hmm. Hangman Page and Max Caster started off the show. Caster did a rap called Page a Fading Star Who's Slipping Like Joe Biden on Stairs. and he was about to tell Page to blow him, but Bowens grabbed the mic and said, "You can't say that on TV." And then the slime came down. The Braun Strowman, Shane McMahon slime came down.
Did not. Blow him like a breathalyzer.
Yes.
Yeah.
In this, Excalibur brought up the passing of a Jack Veneno, who is passed away Tuesday at the age of 79. A giant cultural star in the Dominican Republic, best known for beating Ric Flair for the NWA Championship in 1982 in a title change that was never recognized by the NWA. But it was notable the fact like AEW typically goes out of their way to note like wrestling, like significant passings in the industry, much less just the AEW world. I was glad they got this mention in here. So a decent match here with Hangman Page. They built up to Bowens grabbing the boombox, and this distracted Page, and it led to him being sent into the post by Caster and then drilled into the guardrail by Bowens. So his shoulder was injured and was the arm was attacked until he started his comeback. There was a springboard into a clothesline by Page, and then as he teased the Deadeye, the boombox is thrown into the ring, and Rick Knox is just staring at this boombox like, is there a legitimate reason for this boombox to be here? And then finally, he took the boombox away. But as he's distracted, Max Caster used a chain to deck Page. He missed with the top rope mic drop. And then Page set up for the buckshot lariat. Bowens grabbed the leg. He hit Bowens with a moonsault off the apron, then hit the buckshot in 10 minutes and 4 seconds. So Hangman Page gets the victory over Max Caster.
Thought this was a good match. You know, it was a strong, hard-fought win for Page, overcoming of the double team. It felt like this was their attempt at reminding us that he is the number one contender, and they are positioning him next in line against Kenny Omega. He, offensively continues to look great, and I think he's just this entire time been on the cusp and ready to be jumped to the main event at any time, and it looks like that time is coming up soon.
Yeah, which seems early to go to Omega and Page. But they're also, there's a lot lined up for Kenny Omega. Like, they have probably a year's worth of stuff that is all, that they've set up for him to go in multiple directions.
Mox still feels like he's the lingering contender, but man, they just did such a big match. I can't see them following up with anything for a pay-per-view at least. So I don't see him being the next challenger at Double or Nothing, and therefore it might be Page.
Which is a long way. We're still almost 2 months until the next pay-per-view. Shivani brought out the Death Triangle, all three of them, and next week we're getting Pac and Phoenix challenging the Young Bucks for the tag titles.
Wow. Crazy.
Which is going to be an incredible match.
Yeah.
As this is announced, the Pixies begin. This is the best entrance in wrestling. I'm going to say it every time.
Yeah, if it was a
I want to go to a house show just for this entrance. Like, this seems like the coolest entrance to be in a crowd for.
It's a great entrance. It's an even better closing theme. Like, when they win.
Because they kind of have to, they come out and they're on the stage, and it's like you kind of got to fade it out pretty quick. Like, you can only play it for about 20 seconds. And this is a song you want to let play. It's you're right. It's a better closer than it is entrance.
And like, it's so perfect for a babyface because you're gonna want Orange Cassidy to win every single match just so you can hear this song.
So it's the best friends with Chris Statlander now ingrained with the group, and on the screen they show footage of Pac beating Orange Cassidy at last year's Revolution, then a beatdown on the subsequent Dynamite, and another attack in May of 2020. And Chuck Taylor stating, "We still remember." And Pac tells them to get off of our stage. And Trent just is here to warn them. The boys are back in town. Which is quite the line this week. And then noted, "We've got an alien now." Which actually, for our roundtable, one of the people there actually does own an alien that we could have had in the shot.
He does have an alien, yeah. Yes. I like the confirmation of Statlander being a part of this group now. It feels like they are riding off of some great momentum coming off of boy, how did they like? It's amazing because that entire feud I thought was so bad. It's like one of the worst of this year. But you have such a great match, and they come out of it feeling stronger than ever. So, just tells you like the value of great wrestling and what a great job all four of them did last week, along with their opponents, of course. So I'm happy to see this Miro thing finally be done. At least I hope that this was confirmation of that. And to insert them into this entire thing with the Death Triangle and the Bucks, I guess it kind of tells you that the Death Triangle likely aren't winning next week's match.
No, probably not.
Yeah.
Although you could argue that with what the Bucks are doing now, is it so necessary that they even have the tag titles?
But should they be dropping the belts while
I don't see them doing that. I don't. I'm not expecting a title change, but to me, it would. It's not the worst thing, but I'm more so just looking forward to the match. But yeah, you're probably right in the Bucks just keeping them. There was a shot of Mike Tyson, who's back tonight, hanging out with Urban Meyer, the head coach of the Jaguars. So the Inner Circle come out. They are all baby faces now, as Jericho says, "You sound great tonight, Jacksonville." A bad beating will do that to a man.
You know, like, I think the pivot was still consistent enough with the type of character that Jericho was. Jericho was always the type of heel who would come out and, like, bask in the attention, right, that this audience would give him for this song, even as a heel. And I think the transition to simply, like, you know, responding now in kind to the audience is still fitting and is still consistent. You can have a big ego and still be a babyface. That's like every rock star that's out there.
So he begins to talk, and I guess like this was the break point because mid-sentence they cut to break on TSN.
Yeah, I don't understand like if there was just an awkward, like a missed maybe call to break from the announcers or something, but clearly they were supposed to go to commercial and then there was just no natural break.
Yeah, I'm imagining like there was some wacky stuff here, editing wise, towards the end of this promo, and what a promo this was. So the Inner Circle's in the ring, and Jericho pretty much had like a 10-minute monologue, pretty much with his backup.
It was his answer to MJF's promo from a couple weeks back.
Yes, this was him just completely destroying the Pinnacle verbally. He said, "We're back in black, baby." And after they were given a beatdown by the Pinnacle, it was a wake-up call. They had made some bad decisions, and they were apologizing because all those bad decisions were caused by MJF. They were upstanding citizens before MJF had joined them. They're only apologizing for the last few months. And he refers to MJF throughout this promo as my jerk-off friend, which will be a t-shirt probably by tomorrow. He does admit he is not...
Is that one you would wear?
No, that would probably be right up there with the Vince Loves... what was the DX shirt they put out with him?
Vince Loves with a photo of a rooster on it.
That was right. Oh, now it's Vince Loves Peacock.
Oh, you could bring that.
So maybe they could reissue those.
It's really ahead of its time, that shirt.
Jericho mentions he is not smart at certain things, noting high school chemistry and being accused of being on dope, when in fact he just wasn't smart when it came to chemistry. But he is smart about this business and psychology.
Okay, yeah, I believe that.
All right.
I think that checks out.
Did you do chemistry in high school?
I did, yeah. I was not very good at it.
I went as far as grade 11 biology. I hated it. I did not get along with the teacher, who I definitely had a disdain for. And then I stopped science after grade 11. I was like, I'm done with this. I'm not going any further.
I was the same, and I became a podcaster.
There you go. Who are the real winners? So he continues on here. They were always going to turn on MJF, but he ended up being a step ahead of them and outsmarted them. And MJF isn't so smart with spray tan, saying when he was out here a few weeks ago, he was more orange than Cassidy with more streaks than inside the toilet bowl that he put his face into. We started a swirly chant. It says MJF doesn't want to wait to become great. He wants it all now, but he should focus on becoming better than the likes of Peter Avalon and Michael Nakazawa, and that wearing a scarf is old, stale, and it sucks. Why are you stealing my shit? I probably have a clipboard in the back if you need another one of my old gimmicks. And said that you would race to the back after every segment and match to see what the fans had to say. In this business, that's called being a mark. But we're going to change that to you being a max for yourself, and you will never be better than Chris Jericho. And then he just eviscerates every member of the Pinnacle one by one. He calls Tully a third-string member of the Horsemen in between Ole and Paul Roma. FTR completely interchangeable, like the Jonas Brothers, who might make a lot of money, but I don't know which one's which. And he made fun of their names, calling them Axe and Smash. He says that Sean Spears, his number is in his phone after Spears called him 10 years ago for advice after he was fired by WWE, and said he made a bad decision aligning with MJF, similar to making a bad decision about a blonde mohawk in 2021. Oh. And then Wardlow, this is where he was on a roll here, but then he said that Wardlow has $1 million brain and a 13-cent body.
Ugh. Yeah, I kind of screwed that one up.
But he was on a roll here.
They'll fix it in editing.
They could. And then called him stupid. I was waiting for Braun to run in. And then said that Wardlow has to strip naked to count to 21.
Get it?
No, I don't get it, dude. I'm going to perfectly be honest with you. Is this a dick joke?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
That's where I assumed it was.
10 fingers, 10 toes, and...
Oh. Okay. I guess. Yeah.
I thought it was good. I thought it was funny.
All right. Well, hey, if it landed with you, I'm the high school chemistry reviewer here. And then he ended by saying they're going to form a human centipede with the Pinnacle with MJF at the back. This was much more graphic. And this all leads to the announcement of a blood and guts match happening May 5th at Daly's Place. And before we talk about the blood and guts match, you were watching TSN?
Yes, I was, yeah.
So they're trying to censor something Jericho is saying, and there's like a clip, there's like a voiceover, and they totally miss it because instead you just get this voiceover over top Jericho, and then they go back to live Jericho who yells out shitty.
What was the voiceover? I couldn't make it out.
Dude, I listened several times. I didn't know if it was like an old Jericho line or if it was a completely different voice. It was so bizarre.
It was like some of those like made for like movies that are reformatted for TV where they like, replace like shit with like stuff.
Only not seamless in the least. It was just really bad, this attempt to censor this.
It would be really tough to attempt live, so I don't know what happened here. It was definitely a bit strange. It did not take away my enjoyment of this segment, though, because I thought...
this was a hell of a promo from Chris Jericho. And, you know, for those that would, like... What I liked most is that, you know, this was kind of like a Rock promo in just, like, totally running down the heels. But this show was structured. Like, the heels were going to get, like, the last laugh at the end of the night here on Jericho. And you're building up to this huge match.
Though.
And
they didn't get the last laugh, though.
I guess not. You're right. They got the second to last laugh, and then they kind of had to hightail it. You're right. But nonetheless, the blood and guts match, they're going to go ahead with it in Daly's Place in 4 weeks.
You know, it's a concept that I think the name Blood and Guts itself just somehow brings me back to like that 1 week when this whole pandemic began. You know, it was like they were building up to that match, and I believe they had said the next time that they were going to do Blood and Guts, it would be in Newark, New Jersey, or in the place where they were supposed to be. But I guess the timelines being as late as they are, who knows when that'll be. And you have the perfect opportunity right now with a really hot 5-on-5 faction war. So I'm happy to see it. I can't wait. I thought these promos, and I pair this one directly with the MJF one, they felt like a really incredible first round of just like A+ material from the two best trash talkers in the game right now. Just going,
you needed daggers from Jericho here to respond. Oh. Like MJF has run him down constantly. That this to me was not the, babyface just diminishing the heel. It was like him. It was like these two are going to swing back and forth nonstop. My only thing was like at the end of this was part of me thinking like the Blood and Guts is such a perfect match to save, but you have the feud ready made. I would say based on the success of that last pay-per-view, this would have been a more than satisfying pay-per-view attraction at the end of May. Like, this is a hell of a match you're giving away on television.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. In fact, like I felt like they were going to go Stadium Stampede for this instead of Blood and Guts, considering they're probably still going to be in the arena. And maybe you'd want to say Blood and Guts for a live setting, but at this point, who knows when that'll be? Yeah, I think that I think pay-per-view would have been great for this, but it's
like we learned about the last pay-per-view, like a big stipulation match is going to draw. And I think this one, just the long wait for this Blood and Guts match, it's almost become this huge heralded match in AEW's history because they couldn't execute it. It was going to be their biggest show ever. Just that alone. Plus you have this, feud that warrants it. This is not the, it's Hell in a Cell month and therefore the feud of the month gets the Hell in a Cell. This is a feud that warrants the stip.
Well, they must be pretty confident in Double or Nothing.
Do you think they do spring Stadium Stampede again for that pay-per-view?
Yeah, I think it would be dependent on how much of a crowd is there, because that's very much a match that takes place on a screen instead of in an audience. Although they can, of course, do it, switch it up. I feel like while you're still in this Daily's Place era, this is an opportunity for you to do one of those again. You have a stadium right next door. The moment you start traveling for these shows, you don't really have that opportunity anymore. Maybe that's what they built to after Blood and Guts. But Blood and Guts feels like it's a pretty feud culminating type of match. If we're thinking War Games, but here it seems like it's being used to start the match, start the feud.
Yeah, and you're gonna have to reconfigure the floor with the two rings, and it's. Like to be honest, it kind of does make a bit more sense here in that, to do it at a major arena, that was one of the pitfalls of War Games is that you're adding this ring that's eliminating your most expensive seats on the floor on top of it. So, I mean, in this case, I guess they just made a decision. We've got the feud. We can't just wait forever for this. So
they had always seemed to peg it for TV, and for some reason
that's true.
Committed. Yeah.
Dasha interviewed Christian Cage, who said last week was a culmination of a year, of working to get back into the ring of what was taken away from him 7 years ago. And Kazarian took him into deep water. His lungs were on fire. And then Taz walks in, old friend Taz, who tries to recruit Christian and tells him to sleep on it.
Yeah, an interesting little angle here. I mean,
the double cages.
Ooh, maybe swapping one cage for another at this point.
Maybe one cage goes out and another could hint that he is coming in.
Got any more cages?
Well, we're going to have two
Nicholas.
On May 5th.
Nicholas, okay. Do the triple tier.
Okay. Yeah. I think your audience would probably be gone in 60 seconds if you tried that, but
very good.
Maybe
I'd love to see that face off.
Oh, you beat me to it. That was my next one to go with. Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy against Bear Country. Godzilla versus Kong. I thought this was a really great showcase for Bear Country to just be, a fun team for Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy to work off of. This match was not without some of its hiccups, to say the least. Jungle Boy tried this leaping DDT off the ropes and just nearly lost his footing. JR even did bring up a bowling shoe reference at the end of this. I would not go that harsh, but I did think Boulder and Bronson, this was treated like a big deal for them, and I thought they got to shine quite a bit here before it ended, where Boulder sent to the floor, and then Bronson ate a chokeslam and the standing moonsault from Luchasaurus, who pinned him, and that concluded the Godzilla versus Kong match.
It was the biggest spotlight that Bear Country's ever had, being part of this Warner Brothers cross-promoted match with a film that's quite popular right now. And I think by the end, they achieved what they needed to by putting them on the map. This is a team that's very much kind of like War Machine, just big dudes who are very agile. They stand out in this division, certainly amongst like all these small cruiserweight teams. I look forward to seeing more of them. And but absolutely, this is probably not the best effort these four could have had. There were definitely a number of.
It was sloppy at points. Yeah, it was a bit of a car crash, but maybe it fit to the theme of the movie.
I haven't seen it, but I hear great things.
We go inside the Nightmare family, the Nightmare Factory. QT Marshall is with Anthony Ogogo, Nick Comoroto, and Aaron Solo. And he runs down Cody, how he had to play second fiddle to Ted Jr., then hiding behind face paint because he was Dusty's kid. But then he went out onto the indies, working with Vanilla Midgets. And he puts over each guy. He says Aaron Solo will never just be known as someone's boyfriend. Comoroto is more than a body guy. And then Anthony Ogogo takes over, saying he's a household name in the UK, and he knocks people out for pleasure. And QT ends the promo by saying, Cody, this is my fucking factory. They are getting very close in AEW to the territory that we talked about Monday with like the weed jokes, where like, I don't take swearing as edgy in any way at all, but I'm fine with it if it's like limited. And it just seems like it is such a go-to in so many promos that it loses its whatever intended impact it's designed to have. It's mitigated because like we can drop bitch in every promo and we can drop shit in our promos and fucking I don't know. It just, to me, is like, it's a little thing that just seems to be this constant that they go to. And it's just, I don't know. I don't find the novelty of like swearing. It's, to me, like, again, a bygone era where this is like these taboo words.
It's definitely a crutch, though. I will say, I think QT needed to end this segment with something emphatic. And I suppose he felt the word fucking would have been emphatic. Although I think it would have been just as emphatic if he hadn't said it and just did the paint thing. Man, what if the dude missed the paint? Like, what if the paint just like spilled on the floor? He really got a good splatter, I thought. Comoroto on the logo.
What if he said, "I think your reality show is going to suck with our male demographic"?
Way more scathing. You should have ended it with that. Yeah, I actually found QT's delivery a little bit dry. For most of this. I hear a lot of criticisms from people about whether or not he is a big enough star to lead a faction, whether or not he's a big enough talent to lead this faction. I think this guy can probably cut better promos than maybe what we heard here. The lines were great. I just thought the delivery wasn't so great. But I do love how he put enough focus on every single person. And that's what I'm most excited about with this faction. The very unique identities of every single one. I love the line about Aaron Solo not just being someone's boyfriend. We all know what that means. But to me, the star of the segment was Anthony Ogogo. He came out here and his charisma was incredibly strong.
I thought he stood out the most easily of the four here. Like he was the one that was given, like the others just stood by, but he got the speaking role and is getting the match next week. So like he feels to me like Comoroto kind of got the spotlight last week physically, but in this environment, it seemed like Anthony Ogogo was and should have been when you're hyping his match for next week.
And all of a sudden, like I'm very excited to see what the man has, not just in the match next week, but more so as a character, as a personality. He sounds great as a heel, and it has me really excited about the entire faction.
Do you think he's going to be given the easiest submission finish imaginable?
I think so.
The Plata.
Yes.
Shivani brings out Sting. I don't know what was on the agenda for this discussion, but we never got there. Jake Roberts came out. I have gone through so many different opinions of Jake Roberts. I'm now at a point where taking notes, I enjoy Jake Roberts a lot now. Because I don't know what the fuck this dude's going to say. I know it's going to be insanity.
What did he say?
Well, first of all, he got a nice haircut.
He did, yes.
He tells Sting, shut your hole. Where is your little gerbil friend? People say I'm a crazy SOB. And before he could even go on, we didn't even get into hot dogs or anything. Archer comes out and takes the mic away. I was like, come on. We were just getting started with like the gerbils and holes.
What sort of direction do you think they give Jake before they give him
None. Absolutely none. Just go, Jake. Archer is sick of the agenda in AEW.
Shouldn't Jake be doing commentary on like Dark or Elevation?
Oh man, I would. That would be something. The play-by-play man would walk off probably. Imagine Paul White and Jake together for 2.5 hours.
I think it'd be amazing.
Archer says that he comes in, he gets pushed to the top, then he gets moved down. He works main events, and then he disappears. So he's really leaning into like people's criticisms of the character. Sting has paid attention to this, and he agrees with Archer. He says, but this should be my interview time. You are a main event guy, Lance. You do main event, and then you disappear. I don't understand it. He says that Jake needs to help him channel his energy in the right direction. You could be fighting for the world title again. You've got it in you. Now go do it. And meanwhile, this whole time, we got shots of Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky in the rafters. Though not exactly as menacing as 97 Sting.
Nor 2020 Darby Allin.
Yeah, and I don't think these two will hang out here for a year.
Maybe not.
There's actually a very good interview I linked to in the update today that Mike Johnson did with Tony Khan. And I thought it was, like with Tony Khan, it's, I thought this was more of a self-reflective interview of, actually going into things like criticisms people have had of the show and different things. And he spoke about, he thought bringing in Sting, that it wouldn't be that difficult to keep him away from wrestling until the pay-per-view. Like it was only going to be like 2 months until the pay-per-view. And noting that, the crowd was very impatient of not having Sting do more, and comparing it to when they had Sting up in the rafters. Like, could WCW have gotten away with that today? Would the patience have been there of Sting just being in the rafters week after week and very rarely getting involved physically, much less doing a wrestling match? Which, I mean, it's very hard to compare. I look at it as though it was Sting. It's not so much not wrestling. It was having substance on the show. It just seemed like he's here and was not really progressing anything in that time.
I mean, was that what that was? The weeks and weeks and weeks of him coming out, being introduced by Tony, and ultimately not saying anything? Was that Tony Khan's version of Sting being up in the rafters?
I don't think it was his version of the WCW one. I think he was just comparing it to the two, that there was a much longer period of going without Sting wrestling, that he thought introducing Sting and just getting by through appearances would have been enough that for people to wait for the pay-per-view match.
Well, for one thing, I mean, that was like the first time we had seen that Sting character. And it was completely mysterious because we didn't know what he was about, what he was going to say, what was going on. This, we have an idea. And it's more so, I think, more constantly teasing the audience that he will have something to say, and ultimately not delivering on that, to the point where now it's become a running gag. Right?
Yeah. I mean, and, with this, obviously, like there appears to be, his program probably laid out here with this Archer stuff of where it's going to lead to, and kind of even hinting at like Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky being involved here too.
So that's what I couldn't really tell at the end of this, because here Sting gives this pep talk almost to Lance Archer, as a mentor. And I couldn't tell if this was just them continuing to build this feud, or it felt more like to me that they were almost teasing a future team up between the two, perhaps against Sky and Page.
Yeah, that could be. Yeah, with Jake as the mastermind.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Jake could be better served. Maybe Jake with Sky and Page. No. Yeah,
Jake is an odd fit anywhere. Team Taz does a promo. Starks credits Brian Cage for winning on Dark last night, and then Taz stops Brian from speaking. They start arguing. He calls Ricky Starks an instigator and says that we have an offer on a table for a real blue chipper in Christian, this hot young prospect that we're going to draft into the group. I mean, man, look at the.
Can you not be a blue chipper but be a veteran? What are blue chips?
Blue chipper is not reserved for a 47-year-old veteran. That's not a term I would necessarily assign here.
But most sports that use that term aren't pro wrestling.
Well, the definition is a highly valued person, especially an athlete. So I guess there you could put it. But typically, blue chipper is immediately followed by the word prospect, a blue chip prospect. Yeah, I guess he's a blue chip veteran.
No, there you go. Yeah.
Blue chips are athletes, particularly high school players, targeted for drafting or signing by teams at the college level. Blue chip players are those who have proven themselves to be among the best at their positions in their respective sports and are more sought after and wanted than other players.
Do you know who was in the movie Blue Chips?
Nick Nolte and Shaquille O'Neal.
AEW's own.
Yeah. Yes. Dude, that was my 9th birthday party.
Blue Chips?
I got to invite 6 friends. And my mom took me and my 6 friends to go watch Blue Chips at the movie theater.
Wow.
That was not a movie I picked.
It was not a kid's movie.
I haven't watched it since that day in March of 1993 when I turned 9.
A very special time.
I kind of want to go back and watch it now. I literally don't even remember the premise of the film. Look at this.
It was about a prospect.
Oh, it was 94 it came out. 94. So I would have been turning 10. Hey, it cost $35 million to make. I mean, it was a basketball movie.
How much did it make back?
26. So there was no Blue Chips too. Darby Allin and JD Drake for the TNT Championship. We got Cesar Bononi and Ryan Nemeth in Drake's corner. I thought JD Drake looked very good in this match. I mean, a different style, obviously a very different look, but I thought he gelled very well. And I think there's a commonality here of how many different styles Darby Allin just works around. And I think like there is that connective tissue to a lot of these guys that, I mean, if you listen to interviews of these new people coming in, whether it's Paul White, whether it's Christian, Jude, all these people name drop Darby Allin. That's the guy they want to work with. It's like he seems to be the one that everyone sees. Like this guy is just a tremendous performer and has turned into a guy that like has become like a ratings draw as well. Like for these TNT Championship matches, like I think like this to me is probably among their best created stars that AEW has made purely off of their television. Like it's been a great job that they've done with him.
Completely agree. Yeah. I mean, I think much of that is AEW's doing, but it's also Darby Allin, of course, and the incredible talent that he had even before coming into this company that was just waiting to be exposed on a national level. They've done a great job presenting him, and I think this run will hopefully continue that.
Sting appeared with the bat to send Ryan Nemeth off into the parking lot. It's all Drake during the break. Did the spot where he bounced Allin off the ropes and into a clothesline on the floor, which just looked, was very inventive. Drake missed a cannonball going into the guardrail, and then there's a big dive by Allin onto Drake and Bononi. Inside the ring, Drake misses a moonsault off the top, and then Allin bites his finger, code red off the turnbuckle, and coffin drop for the victory.
Good physical match, good showcase for both men. But for me, more curious to see JD Drake in a big singles match, and seems like a good addition to the roster. He seems like somebody who can, fit into the dark and elevation rotation for the time being, but in a future time, move into a pretty unique role. So he stands out.
Yes, he's one of the many additions. So we will see when we see him next. The Butcher and Blade then attack Darby with Matt Hardy on the stage. The Bunny is screaming at the announcers to vacate the area so they can use the desk. But then the Dark Order runs out. Ty Conti goes after the Bunny. And that was the end of that segment. And we are going to Darby Allin and Matt Hardy next week in a Falls Count Anywhere match, which given these two together, it's Matt Hardy. I'm slightly worried about this.
I am too. If this is not a cinematic match, which I don't think it will be, I guess you have to ask why. And I guess the why is so that they have, just gimmicks to play around with and maybe interference from other people to be able to use. But yeah, we'll see.
There's a video package for the main event. They were really making a big deal that this is the first time Omega and the Young Bucks have been on opposing sides on Dynamite, and the first time the Bucks are teaming with Jon Moxley. Marvez is interviewing Jericho when the Pinnacle jump him and take him out to the ring, and they proclaim the Inner Circle is nowhere to be found. They hit Jericho with a spike pile driver, and then we go backstage. And we go down the hallway. The door was locked. There was like a beam of light at 9:30 at night coming through my window. It's like, thank you. Thank you for doing. The partners, the friends are incapacitated. They physically cannot get to the ring. And they went to the extent of explaining this for us. And then they broke through this door. This was an awesome scene. This was great. This is all you want. This is all you want. Because your first question is, where the fuck's the Inner Circle? Guess what? We're going to answer where the fuck the Inner Circle is. This was great.
I certainly wouldn't, I'm not surprised at all that AEW would go to such lengths to explain a detail like this. Sometimes they think so hard about the details, they go on to explain things that I don't even ask for answers to. But this was certainly one that...
This was a logical one. This was one you had to explain.
Yes, absolutely. Made the angle. I mean, you had to have a reason for Jericho being beaten down singularly. So, yeah, they sacrificed a door for this.
Yeah, man. This was
that's a lot more than I could say about the Bugatti.
That's right. Pain. Yeah. This was like Quentin Rampage Jackson on that Ultimate Fighter episode.
Yes, it was.
They set up a table on the floor, and Wardlow, with his $1 million brain and 13-cent body, lifted up Jericho for a power bomb to the floor when out comes Mike Tyson. And he rips off his shirt, and there is Sean Spears as Tyson unloads on him, and then, for probably the first time in his life, a takedown by Mike Tyson, and then was just raining down shots. I don't know if any of them were landing, but Sean Spears was the piñata for Mike Tyson.
Would you take that chance? If you're Sean Spears?
Oh, listen, Tyson was being, he was just wailing away at like air on the ground, but that was fine. The Inner Circle finally come out, and then the big moment is Jericho and Tyson. After 11 years since Tyson popped him on Raw, they shook hands and then hugged. MJF is fuming. The war is over between Jericho and Mike Tyson.
Yeah, this is the big Tyson appearance, and I did not expect Tyson to get as physical as he did. But the man is in shape, and he was not afraid to show it off. He looked incredible. I reacted pretty big when I saw him, starting to throw punches, because
that's what people want to see Tyson do.
I mean, have we seen him get this physical? Like, we've seen him, throw the odd punch here and there, but not a barrage of punches like he gave Sean Spears here.
I haven't seen his hands move this fast in a wrestling ring since he made that 3 count on Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 14.
That's it. You're right. When Austin won his first championship, yes. Yeah, no, this was cool. I'm expecting an explanation for why Tyson and Jericho are suddenly working together. But what do you think is the backstory here? Do you think Tyson was always a part of this, or was this a last-minute availability that they wanted?
Tony Khan explained this. Like, he's been in contact with Tyson, but this only came together like last week. They came up with the idea to come here. I don't know. He's obviously going to be on next week's show, so he's staying for the tapings on Thursday. And then beyond that, I have to imagine they still want to do a match with him. The question now is MJF that opponent? Is that your explanation that he's got some... that's the new opponent to do whenever, whether it's a pay-per-view or something down the road. If let's just say you're going to get one match out of Mike Tyson, is that a pay-per-view, or is that better for television for what they are trying to accomplish?
Oh, no, without a doubt, it's pay-per-view. We're talking Mike Tyson here, one of the biggest pay-per-view names of all time. it's almost at the point now where like they might have so many things that they're able to, give out. Like, and May is so far away. Maybe you should just call an impromptu pay-per-view at some point, even though that's not really their style. And I probably think the logistics are probably not that easy to just call an impromptu pay-per-view. But, can they hold this off till May? I guess they can if they wanted to, if they have Tyson.
The pay-per-view is May 30th, I think. So it's like right at the end of May.
Yeah, it's almost like 2 months.
So that was the big segment of the show. And then Shivani's with Britt Baker and Rebel. And Britt requests a women's championship match. But Shivani brings up that she's ranked 4th. So Baker calls the rankings bullshit. They should be based off of television ratings, merchandise sales, and something else. And she's here Star power. She is going to fix this broken system, and she's going to get her wins up on Dynamite, Dark, and Elevation.
I think this is a great little story. You have Britt Baker, who, like by all accounts, I think is probably the most recognized woman in the company right now. But yet she is ranked number 4 based off of wins and losses. And so her goal is to fix that by, going through all the other shows to collect wins. Like she's now on a little side quest outside of Dynamite. And it finally gives me some reason to want to watch Dark and Elevation to see a storyline followed through on Dynamite. I like the little idea.
Isn't she conceding at the end of this that wins and losses do matter? She has to go out and get wins?
Pretty much, yeah. She's complaining about the system, but I guess she feels the need to, win within it.
She should explain through the logic of why Conor McGregor is able to get a title fight off of, if he beats Dustin Poirier, if he loses to Dustin Poirier, it's not out of the realm of possibility that this guy still fights for a title. Nate Diaz could win his next fight against Leon Edwards and be fighting for the welterweight or lightweight title next. So there's plenty of ammunition for Britt Baker for future promos. What I want to know is what the hell's up with Thunder Rosa? She was the winner.
She's on NWA Power right now.
Well, she's just like disappeared completely. Like
a
Radiohead song.
Disappeared completely. Forget that one. But I don't know. I'm assuming they'll pick that one up. Who knows like what was in the works, at the time they booked that finish. But we haven't really heard from Thunder Rosa since that match.
The Bunny and Ty Conti. Conti came out with -1, Sheeta, Grayson, Uno, and Preston Vance, while the Bunny had Matt Hardy, the Butcher, and the Blade out with her. There was this T-bone suplex that Ty Conti delivered, and then this pump knee in the corner. Bunny then yanks her off the apron and hit this shotgun dropkick, nailing Conti into the rail. During the break, Conti makes her comeback, hits Wai's second favorite finisher, the Ty KO, for a 2 count. Bunny then nails Sheeta on the floor, grabbing her kendo stick, and behind Aubrey Edwards' back, nails Conti with the kendo stick. Sheeta then takes back the kendo stick, allowing Conti to land a superplex, and then rolls into Wai's number 1 favorite finisher, the DDT for the victory. And Ty Conti, your number 1 contender, if the rankings mean anything.
Really unnecessary with the names. I mean, the more and more you emphasize it, it's just like, it doesn't even rhyme, You're just replacing the letter T with Ty. I mean, how about like Thai food? Like something that
be her version of soul food, yeah.
Exactly. Maybe Thai one on. Like fuck, I don't know. I'm just thinking of Thai restaurants.
You're just thinking of restaurants, I know.
Tie my shoes, Professor Kevin in the chat room. He says it's a super kick. Tie my shoes. Anyway, she could do better than DDT, I think. I thought this was an alright match. I didn't love like all the bullshit in the finish, but I think this is a continued strong showcase for Ty Conti. Her confidence and personality are really coming through in ring. So I think she's been doing a great job of owning this airtime. I am like missing, I think, a bit of personality in her promo and her like more just overall kind of character, and maybe just a bit of story. It seems like they're building something between her Shida, where they're very close friends, but inevitably have to face one another. So, yeah, we wait to see what happens. Is she actually with the Dark Order, or is she just an acquaintance?
She was Anna Jay's best friend, but I don't think they officially she's an official member.
The Dark Order like statuses I think are very they're very loose, I think, with who they can welcome in their clubhouse. I mean, I think Colt only recently became a member.
Yeah, they're open for business. Next week, this is what we've got. Young Bucks against Pac and Rey Fenix for the tag titles. Darby Allin, Matt Hardy for the TNT title, Falls Count Anywhere. Anthony Ogogo debuts, and Red Velvet will take on Jade Cargill. And they played a video package where Red Velvet said that Jade better be that bitch that gets the job done. Because that's what Jade could barely do in the tag match. She could barely get the job done. So this is a completely get the job done match.
Well, you want to make sure. Yeah.
Yep. And then Chris Jericho, who will have Sammy Guevara in his corner, will take on Dax Harwood with Cash Wheeler in his corner. Mike Tyson is the special enforcer. All other members of the Pinnacle and Inner Circle are barred from ringside. So that will be you've got several big matches next week. Like the TNT title match is going to be probably a wild match. The tag title match is a huge one. And then you've got Tyson coming back for the enforcer role.
Like the Tyson thing is, continues to somewhat, perplex me a bit, because this was at one time a gimmick for a WrestleMania main event, right? Having Mike Tyson as their special enforcer. And certainly it's something that I'm sure they would have liked to have saved for a pay-per-view, but it must be due to Tyson's schedule, I would think. But even so, would this not be something that they should have considered saving? Or do they have something bigger in the works?
I would think that's I think Tyson as a special enforcer, I think that's I think this is like a television event that you put it on, and I think that's their television is of great significance for them, so I think this is the right call. Then we had the main event of Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers against the Young Bucks and Jon Moxley. Don Callis is on commentary. Matt is struggling to fight with Kenny Omega. He has to tag in Nick, who is less apprehensive. There's a big triple dive spot by the baby faces. We went through the break. Moxley fires up with German suplexes to Omega and the Good Brothers. Then they build to a spot where Omega is dazed, and Matt just can't do it. He can't hit the super kick, and he gets slapped by Kenny, and then Matt goes after him. Matt gets hit with 2 snapdragons, and the V-trigger gets stopped when Moxley saves Matt Jackson. So remember that. Saves him with a lariat, and Matt hits a pile driver onto Omega for a 2 count. Couldn't super kick him, but would drop him on his head. That was okay.
I mean, reluctantly,
Oh, reluctantly.
He also did check on him after the lariat.
Yes, he did do that.
Yeah.
They hit more bang for your buck. Anderson was in for the save. And Matt is still showing concern for Omega. Nick calls for the BTE trigger. Matt just can't do it. He's holding the wrist. He's like, no. Moxley's getting pissed. He gets in. They try again for the BTE trigger again. Matt is gun shy. And Moxley then tags himself in. 1 paradigm shift to Omega. A 2nd paradigm shift. Then he applies the rear naked choke. He's going for a 3rd paradigm shift when the Bucks hit a double super kick to Moxley. The crowd is stunned. You can see that this is very much being that they are reluctant to do this, but they would continue on here with their alliance. Eddie Kingston runs out. He gets laid out with a magic killer, and then another magic killer is delivered to Moxley as Kenny Omega pins him in 1656, and the Good Brothers are celebrating. The Bucks look torn, but in the end, Moxley is propped up onto his feet, and the Bucks hit another double super kick, and they all hug together. So you do go off the air with the idea that the Bucks are aligned with Kenny Omega.
The last 2 times Kenny Omega fought the Young Bucks in a tag situation, they created two all-time classics. You know, both the Golden Lovers Bucks match and Page and Omega versus the Bucks were my matches of the year for both of their years. So I had very high expectations coming into this, not just for the in-ring, but because of the storytelling. And in this match, you saw, I think, Matt Jackson and Kenny Omega again replicate some of those beats. I thought it sucked this time. It felt forced. It felt cliched. It was groan-inducing. And maybe it's because by this point, it feels like a gimmick that we've seen so many times. Perhaps because the groundwork and the story wasn't as strong. But I just felt like it was so forced. And the match was good. But, you know, maybe because of the TV setting did not reach the standard of the previous encounters before getting into all these, you know, storyline things. I thought the finish was pretty groan-inducing too. You know, too much flip-flopping in a short amount of time for the Bucks. They were flirting with being heels, doing the too sweet the first week. Then they cemented themselves as baby faces, like what, just 2 weeks ago? And now they're heels again. You know, it feels like a bit of backtracking. It feels like a bit of kind of a, you know, too many like Big Show-like twists and turns that ultimately take me emotionally out of this story.
Yeah, I just thought, like, I think Matt Jackson, like, when he is, like, doing, like, his heavy selling in matches, I think it's super effective. This was, like, a different, like, this was him having to act, and it just, to me, it was just too, like, I got it. It's, like, loud and clear, and I think, like, this could have gained a lot from, like, some more subtlety, and on the other contrast was, it almost seemed like the announcers were having like a mixed read on Nick, who his body language was like he was hardly having any hang up on attacking Kenny Omega. But at one point, Excalibur is trying to explain that both of them are torn. It was like, well, Matt is about to like have a medical issue because of this anxiety. And Nick is like, let's finish the match. So I didn't even think that part was really coherent. So that when you do the end where they get together for the double super kick, it really didn't match like the body language because you had two extremes of Nick, who just seemed completely out of it, which was the story last week. The story was Callis and Matt, where Nick just like took off and he really wasn't part of like this story with Callis. Like he was not the one going through this like personal friendship crisis with Kenny Omega. So I thought like for tonight, I thought it kind of missed the mark in a big way. And by the end of it, you're right. I think they're going to go to these stories where you're teasing the Bucks, but ultimately they will come out of it. But I would really be careful about doing that too often. I think you can get away with a lot when you're not necessarily in front of crowds and stuff, but I think you're putting a lot of the crowd that is actually going to, like, it's going to be diminishing returns when you're doing these teases and then either not fully turning them or just thinking like, we can flip back. This is a multi-layered story.
Yeah, I hate that excuse. Yeah. It's a great excuse for like confusing story too. You know, The Fiend and Randy Orton has been a very multi-layered story as well. And I'm not saying that this is on that level. Like certainly the matches I think will be tremendous, you know, no matter how you want to slice it. But I just think story-wise, you know, everything with the Bucks and has not been great at this point. I felt like they're, you know, if they were staying baby faces, I think lines were already just starting to become clear about who was on which side, what matches we were going to get. And immediately in the first match, they turn back, and I think it just simply confuses things again. But, you know, we'll see. We'll see next week how they follow up with it.
Is there, like, just looking at this from, like, a potential, like, the positive of doing this is that I think it's a perfect program that you could extend to the pay-per-view of the Bucks against Moxley and Eddie Kingston, and looking way down the line, like, obviously a big story to go at some point is the story of like the Elite, like this breakup. Is it more effective if eventually these guys are heels and Hangman Page is your one babyface that is going to take down Kenny Omega? Like, is there a long-term value to having the Bucks aligned with Kenny Omega and telling that story that down the road, that this is going to serve a better function with the Bucks as heels, even though in the immediate future, they, to me, contribute much more to this program as babyfaces.
Well, sure, yeah. Like having the story of Paige going by himself as the lone wolf going up against the rest of the elite as heels, I think that'd be great. But this is not the time to tell that story. You had just embarked on, Bucks versus Kenny and the Good Brothers. And to me, like, it almost felt like this week was a bit of a reset, without seeing this Bucks babyface versus heel Kenny story through. But man, next week, if it's another swerve, I don't think I'm going to feel any better about all this.
So that was Dynamite. I wasn't surprised by it, but worth noting the fact that, if ever there was a week that you would have wanted an Impact plug, this was it. And there was none.
Oh, yeah, because the match.
Tomorrow's the debut and Kenny Omega's wrestling.
You're right. Yeah, nothing. Interesting.
So, yeah, it's Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers against Rich Swann, Willie Mack, and Eddie Edwards. So that's the big match tomorrow. And I just think Impact's going to be this week, for a first week to establish the new night. I think you almost just, next week will be people's reintroduction to Impact on Thursdays, because I think it's going to be lost in the shuffle of everything tomorrow night, mainly TakeOver, but everything that's going on. Like, I just don't sense like Impact. When you move nights, like, part of it is that it's an excuse to really promote things, get some people out to do media and stuff. Like, dude, WWE, they have carpet bombed the media. Like, there are interviews all over the place covering it. Like, they have got their people out there doing everything imaginable. This week is only focused on WrestleMania. I just think it was a bad week to, like, hold it off to next Thursday.
Do you think that they were aware of the takeover being on the Thursday when they announced this date?
They made the announcement last week or 2 weeks ago,
right.
I think. Like, they only announced it recently. That there wasn't a big lead time.
This Tuesday actually would have been a great week to have your last episode, because you're only going up against the Hall of Fame, which I think would have been easier competition to face, and a chance to get the word out a little bit more for the next Thursday's debut. But debuting this Thursday against the TakeOver is going to be tough.
There you go. That was AEW Dynamite from Wednesday night, the final head-to-head night on Wednesdays.
Are you going to miss it, John?
I won't. It's going to be easier to watch everything now. So that part, I mean, to me, it was like, it wasn't ever a big deal. Like, I kind of had my routine where I would, I'd do the show with you and then I'd watch NXT before I go to sleep, and it was fine. It was not, I mean, God, there's still so many hours to watch. It's not like it becomes easier just because one moves to a different night. But I think ultimately it's,
we could pace it better. Like, to me, like, NXT might be a Tuesday night or a Wednesday afternoon watch for me now, before Dynamite, and I'll appreciate not being spoiled, for one show or the other. And I'm sure our friends at Up Next will probably appreciate the same.
Well, let's go to some feedback. I want to see what people had to say about tonight's show. The show got a 7.4 out of 10 from the forum. Noah writes, a step down from last week's show, but a good show tonight. The Jericho promo was one of his best in years. I'm so excited for the Blood and Guts match. And with the U.S. having vaccines available for anyone that wants one by April 19th, I'd imagine by May 5th, when that match takes place, there will be a pretty large crowd on hand to watch that take place. And I'm glad to see Ty Conti continue to get a spotlight. She was great tonight. Next week's show looks stacked. What are your predictions as to what type of viewership demo they should do now that they aren't head-to-head with NXT? It's a good question. I think, like, if you look back at the Tuesday numbers when they tried out the experiment back in the summer, what we saw was that AEW, I actually have the numbers right here. Like, they going on Wednesdays unopposed for those 2 weeks, AEW went up 12% in their demo and 17% in viewership. So, I mean, I'm looking for like comparable numbers, and next week's show, they are building it up for a big show, which was very smart. I think you're going to have people that are maybe exclusive NXT viewers, or they're ones that were flipping back and forth, that all of a sudden now Wednesday, there's 2 hours of wrestling. Maybe I'm going to give this more of a shot. And you're giving people a pretty loaded show to sample the AEW product next week. So I think they're certainly being very aggressive to try and get any of that crossover audience. And as well, like I mentioned before, the over 50 audience that NXT has dominated that demo, is that audience more inclined to seek out another night of wrestling now that their preferred product of NXT is not hampering them from sampling AEW?
Yeah, we'll find out. Or will they not watch altogether?
They might. I mean, some people might believe in this thing like a night off and not want to watch wrestling after what is going to be 5 hours of WWE in the span of 48 hours every Monday and Tuesday.
What is that loyalty to the WWE going to look like? You know, will it be similar to like the loyalty people had to WCW? When that away, it wasn't like everybody jumped to Raw.
Do you see any kind of, just of the wrestling fan that is following a lot of this, that just like Tuesday night, there's a lot of wrestling, but I wouldn't say, and Impact included, I wouldn't say it's like must see for every single wrestling fan every week. Now you have NXT that I wouldn't say it's like, it's not going to obviously do anywhere in the neighborhood of Raw, but like after 2 nights, do you sense like any kind of like a burnout that Dynamite, like there's any kind of negative to this for AEW?
Burnout? No, because I think, you know, by this point, AEW has certainly amassed their own audience that looks forward to Wednesday more so than the others. I think as long as your show is good, I don't think burnout will be that much of a factor. Certainly, like if anything, the show suffering from burnout the most will probably be Raw and SmackDown. Like people are going to make time for the shows that are good. I think people are going to be more willing to cut out of their schedule an hour or 2 of Raw than 2 hours of Dynamite.
Yeah, I think so too. I think what you're going to see is increases for both. I see more of an increase for NXT being on Tuesday. I think they are going to benefit greatly from being on Tuesday.
Let's go to Nick from Boston, who says, I had Dynamite on a split screen with TakeOver, so I caught the show in bits and pieces, but it felt like a mixed bag. From what I could tell, there were some pretty strange storytelling beats in this episode. Why is Tyson suddenly coming to Jericho's aid? Britt being pushed into the title conversation is a bit odd, considering she lost the match with Thunder Rosa, whom we haven't seen since. Somebody in the chat room did inform me that was an unsanctioned match, so technically not on anybody's record, and therefore having no bearing. The Young Bucks being conflicted about hitting Omega with the Golden Trigger was bizarre. They've dealt out worse damage to him in prior matches when Kenny was still a face, and have been antagonized by Callis for a week, so why would they feel compelled to join him? It just seems super abrupt. I trust AEW enough to do a decent job explaining all of this, but the narratives of the show felt disjointed for the sake of creating viral moments. On the plus side, Jericho cut one of the best promos of his career, and I'm continuing to love the Darby Allin Open Challenge.
And we'll end off here with Bruce. A fun enough show dominated by mid-card matches and main event angles. JD Drake has had some great matches on Dark recently, and I thought he was a perfect foil for Darby. Ty Conti's really improved her stock on Dark and has flourished in the spot afforded by Anna Jay's absence. I know some people aren't taken with just how many moving parts there are in the Bucks Omega Mox story, but I like the way it's drawing upon so many years of history and different feuds and friendships which have run through different promotions. I've enjoyed Callis as the devil, whispering in the Bucks' ears and slowly undermining their confidence, and conversely Kingston once again coming out to try to protect Moxley after trying to destroy him a few months ago. It makes for a nice redemption story and is almost enough to make me forget about the fizzling fireworks. That said, given that we're still nearly 2 months away from the next pay-per-view and presumably Omega's next title defense, should Darby be facing some slightly higher profile opponents to give the TNT title some extra prestige until then? Well, I mean, you're getting Matt Hardy next week, so that's, I mean, a step up from like a relative unknown in JD Drake on Dynamite.
Yeah, and I see them trying to replicate in a way like the, you know, Cody's Open Challenge, in that like the TNT title is there as much to profile some of your unknown talents and maybe brand new talents as it is to, you know, make your champion look impressive. But I'm sure in the weeks to come, you'll get a scattered, you know, selection of different guys. But thank you everybody for your feedback. And thank you, chat room, for being here. I want to especially thank UPS Sean for providing a point of view of what it's like to be a UPS driver at this hour. I don't know if you're watching on the Zoom call, John, in gallery view, but thank you, Sean. Be safe out there.
Well, yes, absolutely. Stay safe. We are going to wrap up the show. I've got TakeOver to watch now, and we are going to
check out John's update on the Patreon today.
Yes, it is up there for Cafe members. We'll have another one up on Thursday. And also on Thursday, I'm going to do a chat with John Elba, a reporter with Spectrum Sports 360. He is in Tampa for WrestleMania week, so I'm going to talk to him about covering WrestleMania week down there in Tampa. And we will be back Friday night with Rewind to SmackDown. We'll be live at 10:15 Eastern, and for this weekend, we will be live, starting Friday, we'll be live 4 straight nights. So Rewind to SmackDown on Friday, then Saturday night, right after WrestleMania, for Double, Ice Cap, and Espresso patrons. Sunday after WrestleMania, live for all patrons. So that will be the schedule for the weekend, and then Rewind to Raw on Monday. So there's a lot to catch up on. You can go check the feed, both on the Post Wrestling Cafe and the regular Post Wrestling feed, and lots to come. Lots and lots and lots of shows to watch. This week is nuts, dude.
It's crazy.
Are we going to get around to the Champion Carnival on Friday? The Cinderella Tournament on Saturday? UFC? Bellator?
Yeah, I'm going to have to check with my schedule and see if I have time. But what I will have time for, of course, is up next, covering tonight's edition of Stand and Deliver. Join those guys on their Twitch as they're watching everything along this entire week, including SmackDown, including WrestleMania, and join them for their tailgate party, WrestleMania weekend. So all of that with our friends at Up Next.
Yes, and I'm definitely going to see TakeOver, and hopefully by Friday night show, maybe we can chat about Bloodsport if you get a chance to see it. I'm going to do my best to watch it. That's on Thursday night. So
when is Spring Break?
Spring Break is Friday night, head to head with SmackDown.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so that one we will not be able to watch.
That one might be a bit tougher.
Friday night.
Yeah.
But anyway, that is all coming up. Postwrestling.com. Follow at postwrestling.com/mania.
Mania.
There we go. For all of your show guides and matches for the week to come. And that's it. Good night.